Continuing on with our bottoms-up analysis of GCP applied technologies, we're going to take a look at the company financials by using the FA function in Bloomberg. Within the FA function, there are multiple tabs that you can look at. We'll walk through most of the tabs in this video. I currently have the periodicity set to annuals, but you can adjust the periodicity based on the analysis that you're performing. You have the ability to look at specific quarters, or you can look at trailing 12 months as of a certain quarter. I'm currently on the Key Stats tab in Adjusted Highlights. The adjusted means non-GAAP results reported by the company. A company could report non-GAAP results if they have one-time costs that they want to exclude from their GAAP operating results. This gives a better picture of their ongoing business operation. A typical one-time cost could be a restructuring program that the company has announced. The restructuring program could involve significant employee severance costs, as well as asset impairments from the closure of offices and warehouse. These would be non-recurring expenses that an analyst would not expect to see in the future. On the Adjusted Highlights tab, you can see a few different metrics, such as the components of enterprise value, revenue, gross profit, EBITDA, net income, EPS, as well as a few cash flow items. In addition to the adjusted highlights, you can look at GAAP highlights, which includes major items from the financial statements, which conforms to US GAAP, earnings, which compares earnings to consensus estimates, enterprise value, which will include the components of enterprise value and certain EV ratios, EV excluding operating leases, which will reduce the debt based on the operating leases that the company has, multiples, which shows certain ratios such as PE, price to book, price to sales, and a few others. Next, we have per share information, which shows basic and diluted shares outstanding, and then certain income, cash flow, and balance sheet items on a per share basis. And the last tab is the stock value, which shows the stock price information as of the end of the year or quarter, depending on the periodicity you've selected, as well as the market cap for the end of those periods. Next, we'll take a look at the income statement. Similar to the key stats, you have the ability to look at an adjusted income statement, a US GAAP income statement, or you also have the ability to look at what the company reported. We're going to take a look at the US GAAP income statement, and I'm just going to change the quarter to quarter 3. And as an analyst, you may be looking for any inconsistencies between the prior year or prior year quarter. If I scroll down to other income, I can see that GCP reported $103.9 million in other income, which is inconsistent with the prior years. So I can actually click into that number to see what makes it up. So looking here, I can see that there's a sale of business for $110.2 million. And if I click into that further, I can see that it was a gain on the sale of corporate headquarters. By clicking into this, it will actually pull up the 10Q from period 3. And I can see that there's a gain on sale of corporate headquarters on the statement of operations. Because this is a major item, there should be some commentary in the MD&A. I've found the discussion on the sale of the headquarters in the MD&A, and it appears that the company has entered into a sales leaseback with the buyer for a maximum of 18 months. These will be new rental payments that the company hadn't reported in the past, and as an analyst, you can expect that GCP will either be looking to purchase a new office building, or they'll be entering into a new lease, and this will be additional expenses that they hadn't incurred in the past. Back on the income statement in the FA function, we'll take a look at the GAAP percentage tab at the end of this row. The GAAP percentage and adjusted percentage tabs are the common size income statements. The common size income statements are where the components of income are reported as a percentage of revenue. So for instance, sales and service revenue is 100%. Cost of revenue is 62.2% for the fiscal year 2019. Looking at a common size income statement is helpful because it's a little bit easier to find any material changes from prior year rather than looking at dollar figures in a typical income statement. Now we'll take a look at the balance sheet in FA. As you can see, there are three options: standardized, as reported, and common size. The standardized balance sheet is to ensure consistency across various companies, whereas the as reported is what the company actually reported in their 10Q or 10K. The common size balance sheet compares the components of the balance sheet to total assets. As you can see, total assets is 100%. Clicking back to the As Reported tab, as an analyst, I'm looking for any major inconsistencies from year to year. I can see that from 2016 to 2017, cash and equivalents increased from 163 million to 721 million. My first thought would be that the company issued debt in order to secure cash. But if I scroll down to long-term debt, I can actually see that it decreased from 783 million to 520 million. In this scenario, I would want to go to the 10K to see if there's any additional information as to how the company secured this much cash. So I can click on any number to drill down into the 10K. The statement of cash flows didn't provide too much information, other than that this was cash from discontinued operations. But I was able to find commentary about the cash in the MD&A. It turns out that the company sold one of its major operating segments, called Derex. This was in July of 2017, and they received pre-tax proceeds of approximately $1 billion. The company used a portion of the proceeds to pay down their debt, which explains why we saw the decrease in the debt balances on the balance sheet. At the end of 2017, the company had a significant amount of cash on hand, so an investor would be keeping a close eye on how GCP uses this capital in order to generate additional revenue going forward. We'll take a look at the cash flow tab. As you can see, we have two options under cash flow: standardized and as reported. Since the starting point is net income for cash flows from operations, we're looking at the indirect method of reporting a statement of cash flows, which begins with net income and adds back non-cash items that were included in net income, and then adjusts for increases and decreases in the working capital accounts from the balance sheet. Cash flow from investing and cash flow from financing are similar under both methods, so these should look familiar no matter which method you're used to seeing. Next up is the Ratios tab. We won't go through all of the options, but you can see that there are ratios for profitability, growth, credit, liquidity, working capital, and it even has the DuPont analysis. These ratios are extremely helpful for an analyst, and the fact that Bloomberg has already calculated them for you will save you a great deal of time. If you're unsure what a ratio is or what's used in the calculation, you can click into one of the numbers to see what inputs were used in the calculation. Clicking into the 2019 operating margin, I can see that the formula is operating income or losses divided by revenue times 100. The numbers used to arrive at 9.05 will be the 91.7 operating income divided by the revenue of 1013.5. I would recommend spending a significant amount of time going through these ratios tabs to get a feel for which ratios appear in which tabs. This will save you a significant amount of time in your analysis. The last tab we'll look at is the Segments tab. In the By Measure tab, we can see the contribution to the company's performance from each segment. As you recall, the company sold the Derex packaging segment in 2017, so that's why there's 0 being reported. The remaining two segments for the company are Specialty Construction Chemicals and Specialty Building Materials. On the By Geography tab, you can see a few of the major financial metrics broken down by geography. Items like revenue and pre-tax income, as well as PP&E are reported. On the By Segment tab, again, you see major financial items reported such as revenue, gross profit, EBITDA, assets, and goodwill broken down by segment. This is all information that comes from the company's 10Q or 10K. So if you need to perform any additional research, you should be able to find additional commentary in the filings, and specifically in the MD&A section, where a company is required to discuss its operating segment performance. So at this point, we've gone through the major components of the FA function that should assist an analyst performing research on a specific company. The FA function is very interactive, so feel free to click on the numbers to see what will pop up in order to dive deeper in your analysis. And with that, that concludes our tutorial on the FA function. Thanks for watching.